Okay, so finally we get to market failure. Again, if you haven't watched the two videos on merit and demerit goods and public and private goods, unless you're already very comfortable with those concepts, I'd advise you to watch those videos in the same playlist first. But anyhow, so market failure, and this mainly the idea here is where markets fail to allocate resources. So markets fail to allocate resources um, efficiently. This brings in ideas of allocative efficiency, which some teachers do teach in AS level. Um, I'm not going to cover it because this is just a quick summarization, because a lot of that just comes in A2 level. But the idea is that they allocate in such a way that it isn't socially efficient. So this is market failure does consist of four cases of misallocation. This is all going to be about misallocation. So if you go after the first one is no public goods. So this is like the idea is this is not just under allocation, there is no allocation. Why aren't there any public goods? Because if you remember, with the issue with public goods, because they are non-excludable, it leads to the free rider problem, since people aren't willing to pay a price because they can consume the good whether or not they pay the price of the good, not of price of karma. But the idea is, since they're not willing to pay a price, no private sector firm will be willing to produce it, because the private sector, so no private sector, I'm really bad spelling, so they can't charge price, so won't produce. And why won't they produce? Because the only thing they care about is profit. So if they're not getting their profit because they can't charge the price, they won't produce it. And since in the market economic system you only have the private sector, no one will produce it. So because of the non-excludable nature of public goods, the private sector just doesn't produce it. So we don't have those, which is a problem. The next thing we have is over allocation. Let's start with under allocation. In fact, we have under allocation of merit goods. Why? Because people demand according to their private benefit, while they should according to social benefit. And obviously social benefit is going to be higher, which is higher. Why is social benefit higher? Because of the existence of positive externalities. And you had a nice diagram on this, which has now been shifted into A2, so I'm not going to draw that. But idea is in AS now it's more about linking market failure to imperfect information. So another reason why people, the first reason was again why people don't demand as much as they should do. Another reason why people don't demand as much is because of imperfect information about the benefits of merit goods. Again, where the benefits of merit goods not just linked to themselves, but to link to society as a whole in terms of what do you call it? External benefits or negative or positive externalities. So and examples of merit goods. I think I forgot to give some examples in the previous video. Basically, education, healthcare, all of that type of stuff, right? So the diagram, if you want to draw a diagram for this, you could have price, you could have quantity. Just draw a basic diagram, demand supply diagram, where you show that demand is less because people aren't demanding as much, and then you can show a decrease in quantity. And this decrease in quantity is basically your under allocation, which is the problem. Again, there is a proper diagram for this. Maybe some teachers even do teach it at AS level, but you don't need it anymore. So the third, again linked to what the second point, very similar in fact, is the over allocation of demerit goods. So these goods are overproduced and overconsumed. And you could say this is again because of imperfect information, um, information about the harms of such goods. You got examples. You got your, tobacco. You got your alcohol. Sorry, guys, alcohol, drugs. All of that bad stuff. So the diagram, if you want to make a diagram on this, you just draw a demand and supply diagram, and you show an increase in price, because the key feature here is with merit goods, people don't realize the true benefits, they demand less. With demerit goods, while people, well, they're not too smart either, but they're being overproduced, and that is why they're being overconsumed. So instead of Q1, the quantity available is Q2 awkward, but and this shows over allocation, right? So it's pretty simple so far. So the last one is also something like just O level stuff. So I'll just draw on a new slide. So the last point we have here is monopolization. So the idea of a monopoly, theoretically, it's just a single seller of that particular good or a service. When we talk about monopolization, we're just talking about increasing market power. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a single seller, but definitely is increasing in market power. So there are more people reliant on that particular firm for that good or a service, right? So we can write this as increasing market power. When you have increasing market power, your demand curve becomes more inelastic. Again, a little difficult to understand because we haven't, because this topic comes before demand and supply. I'm not too sure why. But the idea basically here is that people have fewer other options. They have this one major firm that's increasing in market power. If it forms majority of the market, for example, that was a long shot, but if it has significant amount of market power, the idea is that even if it charges a higher price, people will still continue to buy a lot of their products from that particular firm. So the diagram you would make here, which perhaps hopefully will be more useful after we study demand and supply. So you have price, you have quantity, and you make an inelastic, so a more steeper demand curve. In fact, we can make this more inelastic. So a more steep demand curve, right? Because it's inelastic. And what the firm can do, it can restrict supply in an attempt of increasing price. So as you see, the price goes from P to P1. And the reason they do that, because with inelastic demand curves, increasing price increases total revenue. And the private sector would only care about that, right? But what happens is, instead of quantity Q, you have quantity Q1. So this is definitely a case of under allocation, and also it's a case where consumers get exploited because they have to pay a higher price for the quantity Q1. So that's the last case of market failure. So these are just the four cases. Very simple. Or then, I guess they're very simple once you understand them. If you don't understand them, I guess they're not too simple. But yeah, that's pretty much it.